At exactly 9:17 on a Tuesday morning, Emma Carter was standing in the middle of a conference room while 23 of her coworkers watched her lose her job. She had been called into the meeting without explanation. She assumed it was about the quarterly numbers. Maybe her manager wanted to discuss a project. Maybe they were finally going to recognize the extra hours she'd been putting in. Instead, her boss, Richard Hayes, slid a white envelope across the table. Emma stared at it. "What is this?" Richard didn't look at her. "Your termination notice." For a moment, Emma thought she had misheard him. "My what?" "Your termination notice." Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Emma slowly looked around the room. Her coworkers sat frozen in their chairs. Some looked uncomfortable. Others looked down at their phones. One person stared at the ceiling as if desperately wishing to be somewhere else. Emma's face became hot. But why? Richard finally looked at her. "We've discussed your performance." Emma shook her head. "No, we haven't." "Emma, you gave me an excellent review 3 months ago." Richard's expression hardened. "Things have changed." "What things?" He sighed. "This isn't the place to discuss it." Emma looked around the room. "Then why am I being fired in front of everyone?" Richard didn't answer. Instead, he said something that would stay with Emma for years. "Maybe this will teach you that being loyal doesn't make you indispensable." A few people looked uncomfortable. Emma felt something inside her break. She had worked at Hartwell and Pierce Marketing for 6 years. 6 years? She had stayed late, covered weekends, trained new employees, answered emails at midnight, worked through holidays. She had missed birthdays, canceled vacations, even worked while sick. She had believed loyalty mattered. Now she was being dismissed like she had never mattered at all. Richard pushed the envelope toward her again. "Security will escort you to your desk." Emma looked at the envelope, then at Richard, then at everyone watching. Her voice was barely audible. "Do I get to say anything?" Richard shook his head. "No." That one word hurt more than the firing. Emma picked up the envelope. She stood. Her chair scraped loudly against the floor. Then she walked out. Nobody stopped her. Nobody followed. Nobody said goodbye. As she stepped into the hallway, she heard the conference room door close behind her. Emma stood there for several seconds. Then she whispered, 6 years. And suddenly she didn't know who she was anymore. The walk of shame. Security walked beside Emma while she collected her belongings. Her desk was at the far end of an open office. She had to walk past almost everyone. She could feel people looking at her. Some quickly turned away. One coworker gave her an apologetic smile. Emma couldn't return it. She picked up her handbag, her coffee mug, a framed picture of her younger brother, Daniel, a small plant, a notebook. Then she stopped. On her desk was a sticky note. It said, "Don't forget the 3-hour client call." Emma almost laughed. There wouldn't be a 3 client call. There wouldn't be another client call. There wouldn't be another morning commute. There wouldn't be another paycheck. Her entire routine had disappeared in less than 10 minutes. Security held the elevator. Emma stepped inside. The doors closed. She was finally alone. And the moment they did, she started crying. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just silent tears rolling down her face while she stared at the elevator numbers. When she reached the lobby, she wiped her eyes. The receptionist looked at her. Emma smiled weakly. "Have a good day." The receptionist didn't know what to say. Emma walked outside. The sun was shining. People were walking down the sidewalk. Cars were moving through traffic. Everything looked normal. But Emma's life wasn't. She sat on a bench outside the building and stared at her phone. She had 43s in her checking account. Her rent was $1,650. Her car payment was $410. She had student loans, utilities, insurance, groceries, and no idea when another paycheck would come. Her phone buzzed. It was her mother. Emma stared at the name. She didn't answer. A few seconds later, another call came. Her younger brother. She ignored that, too. She couldn't explain what had happened. Not yet. She couldn't say, "I gave 6 years of my life to a company, and they just walked me out." She couldn't say, "I don't know what I'm going to do." so she sat there until her tears stopped. Then she stood. She picked up her box and drove home. The apartment. Emma lived in a small apartment in Columbus, Ohio. It wasn't fancy, but she had worked hard to make it comfortable. There were photographs on the walls, books on the shelves, a small dining table beside the window, a plant she'd kept alive for 3 years. She placed the cardboard box on the floor. Then she sat on the couch. For the first time in 6 years, she had nowhere to be. That should have felt good. Instead, it felt terrifying. She opened the termination letter. The words blurred. Employment terminated effective immediately. She read it again. Then again. She looked at the compensation section. Nothing significant. Her health insurance would end soon. Her unused vacation would be paid out. That was it. Emma put the paper down. Then she said aloud, "What am I going to do?" The apartment gave her no answer. That evening, she finally called her mother. "Hi, Mom." Her mother's voice immediately changed. "Emma, are you okay?" Emma took a breath. "I lost my job." Silence. "What happened?" "I was fired." "Why?" Emma closed her eyes. "I don't know." Her mother didn't press. After a moment, she said, "Come over." "I can't." "Why?" "I just can't." "Emma, you don't have to be embarrassed." "I'm not embarrassed." Her mother paused. "You're crying." Emma wiped her cheek. "No, I'm not." "Sweetheart." That word broke her. Emma began crying again. Her mother stayed on the phone. She didn't give advice. She didn't tell her everything would be fine. She simply said, "You don't have to solve your whole life tonight." Emma breathed slowly. "Okay, just get through tonight." "Okay, and tomorrow we'll figure out the next step." Emma nodded, even though her mother couldn't see her. "Okay." After the call ended, Emma went to bed. She barely slept. At 2:13 a.m., she was still awake. At 3:47, she checked her bank account. At 4:22, she started applying for jobs. At 5:10, she stopped. She stared at the laptop. Then something unexpected happened. She noticed the notebook she had brought home from work. The same notebook she'd carried for years. She opened it. Inside were notes, ideas, strategies, campaign concepts, customer research, business plans. She had written some of them during lunch breaks, some after work, some on weekends. Emma turned page after page, and then she found something she'd forgotten. A business idea. 3 years earlier, she had written, "Small businesses don't need expensive marketing agencies. They need someone who understands their story." Underneath it, "What if I created affordable marketing packages for local businesses?" Emma stared at the page. She remembered why she'd abandoned the idea. Her boss had laughed when she'd mentioned it. "You're not an entrepreneur, Emma." She had believed him. Until tonight. Emma looked at the notebook, then at the clock. 5:26 a.m. She whispered, "Maybe I should try." The next morning, Emma woke up with a headache. She made coffee, put on jeans, opened her laptop, and created a spreadsheet. At the top, she wrote, "Job search." She sent applications to 14 companies. Then she opened another spreadsheet. "My business." She stared at the second one. She had no company, no customers, no money, no website, no employees. But she had an idea. She decided to give herself 30 days. 30 days to see whether the idea was worth pursuing. If it failed, she would find another job. Simple. That was the plan. Emma spent the morning researching small businesses in Columbus. Restaurants, dental offices, boutique, landscaping companies, auto repair shops, cleaning companies, local contractors. She noticed something. Many had outdated websites. Some had terrible social media pages. Some didn't respond to online reviews. Others had great products but almost no online presence. Emma understood marketing. She had spent 6 years doing it. Maybe she could help. She created a simple offer. Local business marketing starter package, social media setup, Google business profile optimization, basic website improvements, customer review strategy, simple monthly content. She priced it at $300. Then she called her first business, a small family-owned bakery. The owner listened, then said, No, thank you. Second business. No. Third. Not interested. Fourth. We already have someone. Fifth. No. By noon, Emma had heard no 15 times. By 4 p.m., 32. She sat at her kitchen table. She looked at the list. Then she crossed out every name. Her phone buzzed. It was an email. Another company had rejected her job application. Emma laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was almost unbelievable. She had been fired. Now nobody wanted to hire her, and nobody wanted to buy from her. She put her head down on the table. Maybe they're right. The words came out quietly. Maybe Richard was right. Maybe she wasn't leadership material. Maybe she wasn't an entrepreneur. Maybe she was just someone who had been good at following instructions. She sat there for 10 minutes. Then her phone rang. It was her younger brother, Daniel. Hey, you sound terrible. I'm fine. No, you're not. Emma sighed. I've been trying to start something. Daniel laughed. That's good. No, it isn't. Everyone keeps saying no. How many? What? How many people? 40. 40 what? 40 businesses. Daniel paused. That's all? Emma laughed. That's all? Yeah. Daniel, that's a lot. No, it isn't. How many people did you expect to say yes? I don't know. Exactly. Emma leaned back. Daniel continued. You worked in marketing for 6 years. You know businesses need what you're offering. Knowing something and selling it are different. Then learn how to sell. Emma smiled. You sound like Dad. Daniel laughed. Good. Their father had been a salesman. He always said, a no isn't a wall. It's information. Emma had heard that sentence 1,000 times growing up. She'd never believed it. Now she wondered if he had been right. The first yes. The next morning, Emma changed her approach. She stopped selling. Instead, she started asking questions. She walked into local businesses. Can I ask you something? Owners would look at her suspiciously. What? How are you getting new customers? That question started conversations. Some said referrals. Some said Facebook. Some said Google. Some said they didn't know. Emma listened. She took notes. She didn't pitch. She simply listened. One afternoon, she walked into a small landscaping company. The owner, Mike, was busy. I only have 5 minutes. That's fine. Emma asked him 3 questions. How did customers find him? What percentage came from repeat business? What did he struggle with most? Mike answered. Then he showed her his website. Emma immediately saw several problems. She pointed them out. Mike stared at her. How much would you charge to fix that? Emma hesitated. 300. He nodded. Do it. Emma nearly froze. Really? Mike laughed. You're the one who came in here. Emma smiled. Okay. That evening, Emma completed her first paid project. She earned $300. It wasn't much, but it felt enormous. She stared at the payment confirmation. Then she called her mother. Mom. What? I got a customer. Her mother laughed. You did? Yes. I'm proud of you. Emma smiled. Me too. That night, she wrote a sentence in her notebook. 1 customer. Then underneath, do it again. The business nobody expected. Within 2 months, Emma had 9 customers. She worked from her apartment. Her dining table became her office. Her couch became her meeting room. Her kitchen became the place where she ate lunch while answering emails. She made mistakes. A client wanted something changed at midnight. Another complained about a post. One refused to pay on time, Emma learned. She created contracts, set boundaries, improved pricing, tracked expenses, created systems. She stopped charging $300. Her packages became $750, then bound $200, then monthly retainers. She wasn't rich, but she was earning enough to pay rent, then enough to cover expenses, then enough to save. 6 months after being fired, Emma had replaced her old salary. She didn't tell anyone at Hartwell and Pierce, not even Richard. She didn't want revenge. She wanted freedom. The client who changed everything. One afternoon, Emma received an email from a company she had admired for years. It was a regional furniture company with 6 locations. They wanted help with their digital marketing. The owner had found Emma through one of her clients. They asked for a proposal. Emma spent 3 days preparing it. She presented it in person. The owner asked, "How many employees do you have?" Emma smiled. "None." He looked surprised. "You run this alone?" "For now." "How long have you been doing this?" 6 months. He leaned back. "That's impressive." Then he asked, "Why should I trust you with our company?" Emma thought about the conference room, the termination letter, the humiliation. Then she answered, "Because I understand what it feels like when someone decides you're not capable before you've had the chance to prove yourself." The owner looked at her. Emma continued, "I won't promise you that I'll never make a mistake, but I will promise that I'll care about your business as if it were my own." The owner smiled. "Let's work together." The contract was worth $48,000 for the year. Emma walked out of the building. She sat in her car and cried, not because she was sad. Because 6 months earlier, she had been sitting on her apartment floor believing her life was over. Now she had built something nobody had given her, something nobody could fire her from. Success created a new problem. Emma had too much work. The $48,000 contract brought referrals, then more customers, then more projects. Within a year, she had 30 clients. She hired her first employee, then another. Her mother helped her set up a proper office. Daniel helped build furniture. They painted the walls themselves. Emma put a small sign above the door, "Carter Creative Solutions." She stood beneath it with her family. Her mother cried. Daniel took photographs. Emma smiled. She had done it. But success doesn't eliminate problems. It creates different ones. Emma had never managed employees before. She made mistakes. She hired someone who wasn't a good fit. She accepted too many projects. She underpriced several contracts. She worked 16-hour days. And slowly, she started becoming the person she had promised herself she would never become. Always busy, always stressed, always demanding more. One evening, her employee Olivia came into her office. "Can I talk to you?" "Sure." Olivia closed the door. "You need to slow down." Emma looked confused. "What?" "You are working everyone into the ground." Emma frowned. "We have deadlines." "We do." "And clients expect results." "They do. But you're expecting perfection." Emma became quiet. Olivia continued. "You know what happened to you at your old company." Emma's expression changed. "You were treated like you weren't valuable." "I know. Don't build a company where people feel the same way." The words hit hard. Emma sat back. She realized Olivia was right. She had been so focused on proving she could succeed that she had forgotten what she wanted success to look like. She didn't want another workplace where people were afraid of making mistakes. She wanted a company where people could grow. So she changed. She created flexible schedules, training programs, paid time off, regular feedback. She started asking employees, "What do you need from me?" The company changed. And so did Emma. The invitation. 3 years after being fired, Emma received an invitation. Hartwell and Pierce was holding its annual marketing conference. Her former company. They wanted her to speak. Emma stared at the email. She thought it was a mistake. She read it again. The conference director wrote, "We would be honored to have you speak about your journey from corporate marketing to entrepreneurship." Emma laughed. She forwarded the email to Daniel. His response came immediately. "You're going, right?" Emma replied, "Should I?" Daniel, "Absolutely." Her mother had a different reaction. "You don't have to go." Emma knew what she meant. She didn't need to return to that building. She didn't need to reopen old wounds. But Emma thought about it. Then she accepted. Returning to the conference room. The day of the event arrived. Emma walked into the building wearing a navy suit. The receptionist recognized her. Her eyes widened. "Emma?" Emma smiled. "Hi. I heard about your company." "Thank you." The receptionist looked proud. "I'm glad you're doing well." Emma thanked her. Then she walked toward the conference room. The same room. The same long table. The same chairs. The same windows. Emma stopped outside the door. For a moment, she was 29 again, standing there with a cardboard box. Humiliated. Confused. Afraid. Then she took a breath and walked inside. People applauded. Emma looked around. Richard wasn't there yet. She took her place at the front. The conference director introduced her. Emma Carter is the founder of Carter Creative Solutions, a rapidly growing marketing company serving businesses across the Midwest. Applause. Emma looked at the audience. Then she said, 3 years ago, I stood in this room and was fired. Silence. Everyone knew the story now. Some didn't know the details. Emma continued, I was humiliated in front of my coworkers. She paused. I went home that day thinking it was the worst day of my life. The audience listened. But it wasn't. She smiled. It was the day my life finally became mine. Emma didn't spend the speech criticizing Richard. She didn't insult Hartwell and Pierce. She didn't tell the audience how unfair everything had been. Instead, she told them what she learned. I used to think being fired meant I had failed. She paused. Now I understand that sometimes losing something is what finally gives you permission to build something of your own. The audience was completely silent. Emma continued. That day I lost a job. I didn't lose my skills. I didn't lose my experience. I didn't lose my ability to learn. And most importantly, I didn't lose my future. She looked toward the back of the room. Richard had arrived. He stood near the door. Their eyes met. For a second, neither moved. Then Richard nodded. Emma nodded back. She turned to the audience. I spent a long time wishing that day had never happened. But eventually I became grateful for it. The room remained quiet. Not because being humiliated was good. It wasn't. Not because losing my job was easy. It wasn't. But because it forced me to ask a question I had been avoiding. She took a breath. What would I do if I stopped waiting for someone else to recognize my value? That question changed her life. The aftermath. After the speech, dozens of people approached Emma. A young employee said, I've been thinking about leaving my job. A woman said, my boss keeps telling me I'm not leadership material. A man said, I was fired last month. Another woman said, I don't think I'm good enough to start my own company. Emma listened to everyone. She gave advice when asked, but mostly she told them, don't let one person's opinion become your identity. Then Richard approached. Emma's heart beat faster. He looked older, tired, but sincere. Emma, Richard, I owe you an apology. Emma said nothing. Richard continued, I handled your termination badly. Emma nodded. Yes, I should never have done that in front of everyone. No. He looked down. I was wrong about you. Emma smiled gently. You weren't the only person who was wrong about me. Richard looked at her. What do you mean? I was wrong about myself too. He didn't respond. Emma continued. I spent years believing I needed someone else to tell me I was capable. Richard nodded slowly. You're doing well. Thank you. He extended his hand. Emma shook it. Then they went their separate ways. And Emma realized something. She didn't need an apology, but she was glad she had received one. The woman who came after her. Several years later, Emma's company had grown to more than 40 employees. But she still remembered what it felt like to be unemployed. So she created a program called the Turning Point Fellowship. It helped unemployed professionals learn entrepreneurship. Participants received training, mentorship, business resources, and small grants. One participant was a woman named Jasmine. Jasmine had been fired from a retail management position after 12 years. She arrived at the first meeting convinced she had nothing left to offer. Emma sat across from her. What do you want to do? Jasmine shrugged. I don't know. What are you good at? I don't know. What did you do at your old job? I managed people. Anything else? I trained employees. Anything else? I solved customer problems. Anything else? Jasmine thought. I organized everything. Emma smiled. There you go. Jasmine laughed. What? You just described a business. Jasmine stared at her. Emma explained. You could help small businesses train employees, organize operations, and improve customer service. Jasmine shook her head. Nobody would pay me. Emma smiled. That's what everyone says before their first customer. Jasmine eventually started her business. 6 months later, she had 10 clients. A year later, she hired an employee. Then she sent Emma a message. You were right. Emma replied, No, you were ready. The letter she never sent. One night, Emma sat alone in her office. She opened an old notebook. On the first page was a letter she had written shortly after being fired. She had never sent it. It was addressed to Richard. It said, You probably don't remember the day you fired me. But I do. I remember the room, the people watching, the envelope, the walk to my desk, the elevator, the way I cried in my car. For a long time, I wanted that day to disappear. But now I don't. Because that was the day I learned something. My job was never my identity. My title was never my worth. And your opinion was never my future. You thought you were ending my career. You were actually forcing me to begin it. So thank you. Not for humiliating me. Not for firing me. But for unknowingly giving me the push I was too afraid to give myself. I hope you are doing well. And I hope one day you realize that sometimes the person you underestimate is simply someone whose best chapter hasn't happened yet. Emma read the letter. Then she folded it. She didn't need to send it. She never had. She placed it inside the notebook. What Emma finally understood. Emma had once believed success meant proving people wrong. She wanted Richard to regret firing her. She wanted her former coworkers to see her company. She wanted everyone who doubted her to admit they had made a mistake. But years later, she realized something. That wasn't success. That was still allowing other people to control her emotions. True success was different. It was waking up without needing anyone's approval. It was building a workplace where employees felt valued. It was helping other people discover their potential. It was taking her mother to dinner and paying the bill without worrying about her bank balance. It was watching Daniel build his own career. It was knowing that one terrible day hadn't destroyed her. It had redirected her. The day she looked back, on the 5th anniversary of her firing, Emma returned to the parking lot outside Hartwell and Pierce. She didn't plan to. She had been driving nearby. Then she saw the building. She pulled over. She sat in her car for several minutes. The same entrance. The same glass doors. The same sidewalk. But Emma was different. 5 years earlier, she had walked out carrying a cardboard box. Now she was driving a car purchased with money from her own company. 5 years earlier, she had been terrified of losing her paycheck. Now she employed people who depended on her. 5 years earlier, she thought Richard had taken something from her. Now she understood. He hadn't. He had taken away something she had outgrown. Emma smiled. Then she started the car. She didn't go inside. She didn't need to. She drove away. The real turning point. People often think a turning point looks dramatic. A lottery ticket. A huge promotion. A perfect opportunity. A wealthy investor. For Emma, it looked like a termination letter. It sounded like, "You're fired." It felt like humiliation. It felt like failure. It felt like the end. But sometimes the end of one chapter is simply the beginning of another. Emma didn't become successful because she was fired. She became successful because of what she did after being fired. She could have stayed angry. She could have spent years blaming Richard. She could have waited for another company to give her permission to succeed. Instead, she started asking questions. She learned. She failed. She tried again. She found one customer, then another. She built something. She made mistakes. She corrected them. She hired people. She learned to lead. And slowly, the woman who had once been escorted out of an office became a woman, capable of creating opportunities for others. Final message. If you're watching this because someone recently rejected you, fired you, embarrassed you, or told you that you're not good enough, remember Emma's story. One person's decision does not define your value. A rejection doesn't mean you're worthless. A failed interview doesn't mean you're incapable. A lost job doesn't mean your career is over. A painful chapter doesn't mean your story is finished. Sometimes life closes a door so loudly that you don't notice the other doors opening around you. Emma thought she had lost everything that morning, but she still had her knowledge. She still had her skills. She still had her experience. She still had her family. She still had her ability to learn. And most importantly, she still had herself. That was enough to begin again. So if you're standing in your own difficult moment right now, don't ask, "Why did this happen to me?" Try asking, "What can I build from here?" You don't need to have the whole plan. You don't need to know exactly where you'll be 5 years from now. You only need the courage to take the next step. Because sometimes the worst day of your life isn't the day your story ends. Sometimes it's the day your real story finally begins, and years from now, you may look back at the moment that broke your heart and realize it didn't break you. It redirected you. And that was your turning point. If this story touched your heart, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear this today.